May I have your attention?
Shut up and sit down.
We're going to ask that everyone would please move toward your seats. I know this is a wonderful evening, but you're entirely too friendly for a New England crowd. We could all move toward our seats. We'd appreciate it so we can begin to get our program going. Good evening, and welcome to you all. My name is the Reverend Ray Hammond, and I'm proud to introduce the other co-chairs of tonight's event, Sandra Edgerley and Robert Beal. Sandy, would you begin for us tonight?
Thank you so much, Ray. I am delighted to welcome everyone here this evening for the Boston Foundation's 100th Anniversary Gala Dinner. I was so proud to serve as a co-chair of the host committee for this gala with Robert and Ray. These two were amazing to work with. And I'd like to thank them both, as well as the 28 other amazing people who served on the host committee for this evening's event. You'll see their names on the screen during dinner, and they're also listed in your program. They were fantastic. Most of all, I want to thank all of you, the businesses, the colleges, the hospitals, the philanthropists, the nonprofit organizations, and so many others who responded to our invitation to join us in tonight's celebration. Our efforts were successful beyond our highest expectations. Robert, would you like to share with everyone what we were able to raise tonight?
Sandy, thank you, and I'd love to, and I'm delighted to let all of you know that at tonight's gala, we've raised $1 million. I'll have a little remark later. And the good news is that the majority of the funds raised tonight will go right back into the community through the Community Grant Making and Permanent Fund for Boston, the pool of resources that the Boston Foundation relies on to respond to the most pressing issue our city faces every year. Our other co-chair, Ray Hammond, knows something about the Boston Foundation because he only served as the chair of the Boston Foundation for 6 years. And it's been a pleasure to work with and be involved with the Boston Foundation and to thank Paul Grogan, Mary Jo Meisner, and the whole staff for everything that they have done to make this the most important fund in helping make Boston and Greater Boston a better city. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Reverend Hammond.
Thank you, Robert. It was my privilege and honor to serve as the Foundation's board chair. And in that position, I learned so much about the important work of the Foundation in this community. Its work in education, its work in health, its work in jobs and economic development, in housing, arts, and culture. Knowing what I know, I am absolutely thrilled that the funds we raise tonight will benefit both our current grant-making and the Permanent Fund for Boston. That Permanent Fund for Boston provides the resources that are needed to support Boston's incredible and innovative nonprofit sector. Now, if you care, not just about Boston's present, but about Boston's future, we want you to stay tuned for some exciting news about a special campaign for that all-important endowment fund, the Permanent Fund, and that will come later in the program. But now, let me introduce to you tonight's Master of Ceremonies, founder and CEO of the amazing nonprofit organization called Year Up, my friend, Gerald Chertavian.
Thank you, Ray, and good evening to you all. I am honored to play the role of MC this evening to celebrate the Boston Foundation's 100th birthday. How good is that? When I think about my own relationship with the foundation, I think about that ancient Indian tale about three blindfold men who went up to touch an elephant to learn what it was like. One touched the tusk of the elephant, one touched the trunk, and the third ran his hand on the great side of the elephant, on its skin. When they compared notes, they realized they were in total disagreement. Well, when I first experienced the Boston Foundation, I came as a grant seeker. 15 years ago, I had an idea of launching a nonprofit organization, came to the foundation, and they received and provided one of our first grants. And so I thought of them thus as a grant-making organization. Then, a short while later, I learned that our family could actually conduct our own personal philanthropy through a donor-advised fund at the foundation. And so we became part of the foundation under that auspice of actually helping us as a family to make donations and make grants to organizations in this community. So now I was thinking of the foundation as both a grant maker as well as a partner in philanthropy. And finally, I was honored to be on the board of the foundation for 5 years, and that's where I really started to learn about that third leg of the stool for the foundation, is their incredibly powerful and impactful role in civic leadership and policy work, especially as it relates to providing greater opportunity and access for those in our community. So now my blindfold was off. I saw the foundation in its entirety, and I really liked what I saw. Now, you know the foundation is 100 years old this year. What you may not know is that it was the brainchild of a banker named Charles E. Rogerson. He was the president of the Boston Safe Deposit and Trust Company. His son, Charles M. Rogerson, was a young attorney who drew up the papers to create the foundation and served as its director for more than 30 years. In 1980, additional banks joined the foundation as its trustees, and in the late 1990s, all of the trustee banks handed over control of the foundation to its own independently elected board of directors and allowed them to also invest and manage their own funds. I'd like now to introduce the founding sponsors of tonight's event. Joni Jaxtimer of BNY Mellon, which represents, thank you, Joni. BNY Mellon represents the founding bank, Boston Safe Deposit and Trust Company. Second is Bob Gallery, Bank of America. Excuse me, Carrie Sullivan of Bank of America. I think we won with that one, Kerry. Thank you very much. And finally, Allison Quirk of State Street. Representing the other former trustee banks for the foundation. Folks?
They would have never given me that job if they knew what a klutz I am. Should have worn my sneakers. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joni Jaxtimer, and I am absolutely delighted to be here this evening representing BNY Mellon. We are very proud to be a founding sponsor of the Boston Foundation's 100th anniversary gala. But let me first explain the birthday cake, because I know you want to know. BNY Mellon is proud to be representing the founding trustee bank of the Boston Foundation, as Gerald mentioned, Boston Safe Deposit and Trust Company, which literally was there at the beginning for the Boston Foundation. Thank you. And my cake is decorated with the word responding, which represents the early years of the foundation. From 1915 to 1959, the Boston Foundation responded to the needs of people in Boston during 2 world wars, the Spanish flu pandemic, the Great Depression, the scourge of polio, and numerous other challenges. And then, thanks to the generosity of a major donor to the foundation in 1917, $4 million from a man named James Longley, the Boston Foundation was the first community foundation in America with the capacity to make grants. And those grants went to all of the hospitals in Boston, the settlement houses, and important social change organizations such as the Women's Educational and Industrial Union and Boston's chapter of the NAACP. So now, let's see who's presenting the next birthday cake.
So I'm not Bob Gallery, but I'm thrilled to be here. I'm Carrie Sullivan, and I'm very excited to be here at tonight's gala. On behalf of Bank of America, we are another sponsor of tonight's event, and I'm representing not only Bank of America, but all the other trustee banks that serve the Boston Foundation and its many donors from the early 1980s up through the late 1990s. My birthday cake is decorated with the word seeding, which stands for an exciting period in the Boston Foundation's history. In 1959, a man named Albert Stone left close to $20 million in his will to the Boston Foundation, and that gift doubled their assets overnight and transformed its entire approach to philanthropy. Under the leadership of Bill Bender, Fred Glimp, Gino Bellotti, and Anna Faith Jones, the Boston Foundation focused on seeding innovation in Boston by providing critical and early funding to more than 100 great ideas and new nonprofit organizations. In your program, you'll find the entire list of the organizations for which the Boston Foundation has provided seed funding. So with that, who is presenting the third cake?
I just had this terrible thought that I was going to dump that cake right on your lap. I couldn't get it quite to the front of the stage, so here I am. Good evening. My name is Allison Quirk, and I'm here representing all of the employees of State Street Corporation that live and work in the city of Boston, and extend our gratitude to the Boston Foundation for all of the value that they've added to the city that we love. State Street served as trustee bank of the Boston Foundation from the early 1980s to the late 1990s, when the foundation actually became its own corporation. My cake is decorated with the word changing, and it stands for the remarkable transformation that has happened at the Boston Foundation under the leadership of Paul Grogan. Paul has been with the foundation for 14 years, and when he arrived, it was a highly respected grant maker known well to the nonprofit community. But Paul was responsible for changing the game by turning the foundation into a provider of information, acting as a convener and a civic leader. Since then, the Boston Foundation has had profound effect on public education, community colleges, healthcare, and housing, expanded resources for cultural facilities, and many other aspects of our community lives. We will enjoy slices of these cakes for dessert tonight. It's my favorite dessert, birthday cake. And when we do, let's reflect on the remarkable history of both the foundation and the city. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Dick DeWolfe, Chairman of the Board of Manulife John Hancock.
All Grogan asked me was, can you hold your liquor? This is called a Methuselah. And I guess the significance, other than the celebratory nature of this, is to show that the foundation is still quite young, since Methuselah lived to 969 years old. Anyway, you can see that I am not John Fish, who is in your program. John is on a mission that I thought was pretty inventive on the part of the staff here. He's on his way to the West Coast, and he is bearing a bunch of baby gifts that the development staff at TBF gave him to visit the Zuckerbergs. Those donor-advised funds, you gotta love them. Anyway, I'm here really to represent the business community and to offer thanks. You know, it was just 10 or 15 years ago, while I was serving on the board of TBF, that we truly were lamenting the shift in the business community and worried to death about leadership in the business community, worried about funding from the business community, wondering if Boston would continue to be a prestigious center of business activity. And clearly, it's come back stronger than ever. So with great thanks to the 50 corporate sponsors that we had here, and to the hundreds of you out there in business who support the Civic Leadership Fund, we give you tremendous thanks and appreciation. And we hope that you all understand and will continue to tell every other peer the significance of having a healthy city in which to operate our businesses. It is symbiotic. The better we are, the better we do. Anyway, my real purpose is to offer a toast this evening. But before I ask you to raise your glasses, I won't ask you to stand because that'll probably cause all kinds of chaos here. It is really important to recognize that while 100 years has gone by, the thousands and thousands of hours that have been spent by the various leadership teams that have operated the Boston Foundation in those 100 years. Nothing really, you can have the greatest products in the world, you can have the greatest service in the world, you can have the greatest technology in the world, but nothing really happens unless you have the best people in the world. And what the Boston Foundation has done culturally is continue to attract the very best and brightest people to lead the activities that have produced so many benefits for our city and Massachusetts as a whole. So I hope that as you're thinking about this toast, you're also thinking about all of those people through this history who have meant so much to our community. So with that, if you would raise your glasses to one great foundation in one great city, 100 years, and 100 more to the Boston Foundation. Cheers. Thank you all. And now it gives me this is the first time I've ever had an opportunity to do a twofer. I'm going to introduce both the governor and the mayor. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Hey everybody, this is Governor Charlie Baker. I'm really sorry I can't be with you tonight. Massachusetts is a big place, and tonight, unfortunately, I need to be somewhere else. But I did want to take a minute to pay my respects to the Boston Foundation on its centennial, and I especially want to congratulate Michael Keating and the rest of the folks on the board, and Paul Grogan and his terrific management team and staff for the wonderful work you do here in Boston. More than any other organization over the course of your long and storied history, you have been part of positive change over and over and over throughout your history. And I must say that I'm thrilled to be on your team and on your side as we work very hard to bring more charter schools and better educational opportunities to all the kids here in the Commonwealth, and especially the kids here in the city of Boston. It's great that you're celebrating your 100th anniversary, but it's no surprise. You've been relevant, important, and a game changer for so many people for so many years. Congratulations, and I hope you have a great night.
Good evening. I'm Mayor Marty Walsh, and I'm sorry that I cannot join you tonight. But I want to extend my deepest congratulations to Paul Grogan and the Boston Foundation on your 100th anniversary. I was happy to join all of you last February when you released your history book, celebrating the tremendous work the Boston Foundation has done over the last century. As a state representative and now as mayor, I've seen that great impact you've had on our city. You've been a leader and supporter on so many different issues, from education to housing to public safety. You've given us useful data on how we can make our city and Commonwealth the best it can be. You've built programs, places, and organizations. You've supported generations of innovators and change makers. I'm proud to further this great partnership in my role as mayor as we work to build more pathways to success for all residents. Like I've said before, when I see great things happening in Boston, I know that the Boston Foundation is usually there and has played a role in it. The city is proud to be your partner, and we look forward to a bright future of working together to advance this special city we all love so much.
Mindful of the fact that we are here tonight and that we are part of many religious traditions, and in some cases, no tradition, we're going to ask that you would take your neighbor's hand as we offer a brief word of thanks and blessing. And those who will, if you would just bow your heads. Dear God, to our utter amazement, it's a century later and we are still here. Despite 2 wars to end all wars, despite a depression so deep and global that we called it great, still here despite movements that have upended our society and begun to redress injustice when it comes to race and gender and disability and sexual identity. Despite technologies that thrill us even as they may threaten our very existence. Still here, despite climate changes we caused and drag our feet on addressing. Still here, with all our terrible imperfections and amazing possibilities. A century later, we are still here, blessed to be alive, joining our hands and giving thanks, praying on behalf of our region, our country, and our world, and celebrating an extraordinary institution, the Boston Foundation. And we've got a feeling that tonight's going to be a good night. It's a good night to thank you for that vision, hard work, and commitment to justice that brought this foundation into being and that guide it even today. A good night to celebrate an occasion where people can look back and feel inspiration to go forward in our civic and global life. A place where poor and rich, young and old, women and men of every nation and race and tongue can find healing and hope. It's a good night to say thank you to a hardworking board, an inspired leadership, a staff second to none, and a family of donors and grantees who give sacrificially and generously of their time, their talent, and their treasure. It's a good night to pray for those in Beirut and Paris and Bamako and northern Cameroon who have felt, even in greater measure, the trauma we endured during a Boston Marathon not long ago. And a good night to ask that the fears of terror and tears of suffering might come to an end, and that the generations following may finally know peace that day when all swords will be beaten into plowshares, when justice shall roll down like a mighty stream, and when we, your children, will study war no more. It's a good night. And we're having a wonderful time, but in this place we commit ourselves to pray for and work for the heartbroken, the homeless, and the hungry in our city and around your world. And it is your world, creator, sustainer, liberator, and lover of our souls. And we are grateful to be in it. And because we are grateful, and because tonight is a good night, together we say, Amen.